Everyone knows about World War II, but you don't know everything. Here are 20 insane facts about the largest war in human history. Back in the 1930s, the world was still reeling from the First World War, and most of the West weren't thinking about another fight. But little did they know that they wouldn't have a choice. The future Axis powers were building up strength for mass invasions. Imperial Japan had been expanding for some time, and its power move came in the Sino-Japanese War of 1937. This war continued until the end of World War II, and raised many eyes around the globe about just how ambitious Japan actually was. But Japan wasn't the only power to be drawing up cunning plans. Unlike Japan, Germany was still in tatters in the 1930s, and in no fit state for another war, but that didn't stop them. Their economy was in such a bad state, but this only fueled their motivations. While Hitler was rolling out the public relations to the world with one hand, including hosting the Berlin Olympics, the Nazi leader was also investing in some serious military. They spent so much on their military and weapons in the 1930s, they took the world by surprise, in what is known the first use of the Blitzkrieg. If you'd like to know more about the Blitzkrieg, which translates to lightning war, when Hitler's army tore through the West with unrelenting force, why not hit subscribe? We'll be working on a video about this very soon. Anyway, back to the facts. We all know the term Nazi refers to the National Socialist German Workers' Party. But did you know it was originally a derogatory term? Before the party's rise, Nazi was Bavarian slang for bumpkin or simpleton, derived from the common name Ignaz. Political opponents seized on this, using Nazi to mock the party. The Nazis themselves were not fond of the nickname, which probably proves the point. The Nazis were properly proud of their swastika symbol, slapping it on their planes, tanks, and uniforms, and it has become, over the years, a symbol of evil. But it wasn't always known this way. In fact, it was originally an ancient religious symbol, meaning good fortune, and was found in the southern Mediterranean and Asia. Hitler wanted to build a giant sun gun and launch it in space, an idea actually stolen from the ancient Greek Archimedes. His original idea was genius. It was used to set fire to Roman ships. Anyway, Hitler's idea was ridiculous, and it came to nothing, although some say the Death Star in Star Wars is based on Hitler's idea. Hitler was a narcissist, and everywhere he went, he wanted to be loved and adored. Something he hated was that Roman Catholic schools in Germany didn't have his picture on the wall. Instead, they had some guy called Jesus. So, whilst we all know that Hitler hated the Jews, he also took his anger out on the Catholics too. Eventually, he decided enough was enough and put Pope Pius XII on his kill list. Luckily for the Pope, he got a tip-off from an insider of the Nazi party, and it came to nothing. Hitler wanted to weaken Britain's economy, as although the Brits were hurting from the First World War, they were definitely still a superpower at the time. So, in 1939, he came up with a dastardly scheme to make inflation skyrocket. He took prisoners from a concentration camp and got them making fake pound notes. Some say they made £130 million of these. That would be worth billions today. It had some effect on the economy, but hardly what he'd hoped for. Let's keep talking about Hitler's failed moves. Hitler was obsessed with keeping German culture pure and targeted anything he considered degenerate. Books were burned in public squares, and artists deemed unpatriotic were arrested. To drive his point home, Hitler organized an exhibition called Degenerate Art, showcasing over 650 banned books, paintings, and sculptures. The event attracted an enormous crowd, far more than the official Nazi-approved galleries, showing just how curious people were about what had been forbidden. I'm enjoying mocking Hitler. Let's keep going. You've probably heard of the Aryan race, Hitler's pure and perfect German people. Propaganda images of beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed children were slapped up everywhere. Ironically, he was an unattractive, dark-haired Austrian man. Maybe someone should have told him that. In 1935, he began a campaign to find the perfect Aryan baby, to hold up as a symbol of their purity. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister for Propaganda and quite frankly a deplorable human being, began the search for the child. For some unknown reason, he chose a brunette child, and even better, they were Jewish. I would have loved to have seen Adolf's face. Before we move on from laughing at poor old Adolf, let's do one more quick one. In 1940, Charlie Chaplin made a film called The Great Dictator, mocking Adolf Hitler and his fascist regime. It's heralded as one of the great comedies of its time. I think it's safe to say he ended up on the Nazi kill list. Anyway, let's head back to the war. In 1940, German forces tore through France in weeks, forcing the Allies into a desperate retreat. Trapped on the mainland with too few boats and no time to waste, things looked bleak, but then came the Miracle of Dunkirk. Over 8 days, an incredible 300,000 troops were rescued by a makeshift fleet of over 800 vessels, many of them civilian boats. From fishing trawlers to pleasure yachts, ordinary people stepped up to save the day. It was a heroic escape, but the crisis was far from over. After France fell, Nazi Germany set its sights on Britain. A ground invasion was out of the question against the island's strong defenses, so Hitler turned to the skies, aiming to bomb Britain into submission. But the British had a secret weapon, the Dowding System. Designed by RAF Commander Hugh Dowding, this revolutionary reporting system helped detect and respond to air attacks faster. It streamlined communication between ground stations and fighter pilots, thwarting many Nazi raids. Still, it wasn't perfect, and the Blitz would test Britain's resilience like never before. During the Blitz, as Nazi bombs rained down on London and other cities, survival became a full-time job for everyone. Men were off fighting on the front lines, leaving women to take on new roles, from factory work to civil defense. Meanwhile, children were sent packing. Literally. Parents, fearing the worst, often shipped their kids off to the countryside to escape the chaos. Imagine being crammed onto a train, clutching a little suitcase and a name tag and sent to live with strangers who, hopefully, weren't too strange. Some found safety with relatives, while others ended up with host families who'd volunteered for the cause. Not every family could bear to part with their children, though. Some stayed in the cities, trying their luck in bomb shelters and underground stations. Britain wasn't exactly prepared for an all-out air war. At the start, the RAF had just 3,700 planes, and less than half were high-speed fighters. Meanwhile, the Luftwaffe had over 4,200 aircraft, including 1,000 bombers and another 1,000 fighters. On paper, the Germans should have dominated the skies and crushed Britain into submission. Despite heavy losses, including a single brutal day when 39 aircraft and 14 pilots were lost, Britain's defense was sharper than Germany's offense. RAF pilots, backed by revolutionary Spitfires, nimble, fast, and deadly, turned the tide of the Battle of Britain. These aircraft outmaneuvered the Luftwaffe's bombers and fighters, becoming the stuff of legend. By the end, Britain had lost over 1,500 planes and 500 aircrew. But Germany fared worse, losing hundreds more aircraft and over 3,000 men. The island nation had held firm, and the war was about to change again. By mid-1941, Germany's bombing campaign had failed to break Britain. So, naturally, Hitler's next move was to pick another massive fight. On June 22nd, 1941, German forces launched Operation Barbarossa, invading the Soviet Union in what many call the biggest blunder of the war. Why risk it? Hitler's obsession with race. He saw Russia as prime real estate, perfect for German settlers after removing the inferior locals. Bold, but reckless. And as history shows, it wasn't the last time Hitler bit off more than he could chew. December 7th, 1941. A day of infamy. Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor devastated the US Pacific Fleet, forcing America into war. While some pushed to keep the fight focused on Japan, Hitler had other plans. In a bold and arguably foolish move, Germany declared war on the United States in support of its ally. Just like that, Hitler added another powerful enemy to his growing list. With US troops now heading for Europe, the tide of the war began to shift. Interestingly, the first US soldier to die in World War II wasn't even in combat. Robert M. Losey, an aeronautical meteorologist from Iowa, was serving as a military attaché in Norway during the German invasion. In 1940, while helping evacuate American diplomats, he was caught in a bombing raid and killed, making him the first American soldier to fall on the European front, long before Pearl Harbor brought the US fully into the war. I need to mock Adolf one more time. Being a dictator has its perks, like deciding what counts as essential war spending. Hitler had secret fortresses, compounds, and even his own private train. Complete with a conference room, bedroom, and dining room, it was a rolling palace. The train's original name? America. Awkward choice, considering it was American forces hunting it down by 1943. Unsurprisingly, it got rebranded as Brandenburg. During the war, US factories churned out the essentials: ammo, armor, supplies, and soda. Coca-Cola wasn't about to let the troops go thirsty. They set up bottling plants in North Africa, shipping millions of bottles to soldiers across the Mediterranean. It boosted morale, cemented Coke's image as the all-American drink, and locked the brand into history. Smart move, but the war was far from over, and things were about to get bloody. That's it for part 1. Why not hit the like button and subscribe to hear more amazing facts and how things in the Second World War got even crazier. Spoiler alert, Adolf starts to lose his mind.